The Campo and Joe podcast is brought to you by Bold City Heating and Air. Fast and reliable AC service.
Welcome in, Campo and Joe, Facebook Live. If you're tuning in, 1010XL on Facebook Live, Joe C. from XL Primetime, noon to 3 weekdays, and Coach Dave Campo, our head coach, as we are fired up and ready to go. Of course, wherever you find us on podcasts, we totally appreciate it. As long as it fits into your schedule, we like talking Jaguar ball. But we are now on a 2-game L streak, and we can't do it, Coach. We got to go sideways with this. Okay, this is just such a crappy feeling. But we got the L's right on our forehead. 2-game losing streak to the state of Ohio, to Jake Buster Browning, I'm calling him, because he was just a young pup in his first start on the road. And then Joe, old man Flacco, beating up on the Jaguars.
Well, you got the extremes, that's for sure, with those two guys.
Like, I know this is a team game, and I know you're going to school me and educate me right now. But how in the hell do you lose to Jake Browning and Joe Flacco in back-to-back weeks?
Well, first of all, Browning kind of showed his stripes in this last ball game because he played well there too. So the one thing about the NFL, you know, we say this all the time, there's, you know, only 1% of college players play pro football, and the quarterback position is not very many of those guys. So, you know, most of the guys in the league can play. It's just whether or not they play that day or they had enough experience, you know, with what's happening in practice and this and that to where they can perform. So, listen, it's all about the team. It's not just the quarterback. And, you know, our defense is always going to be a little bit bend but don't break kind of a style. But we just haven't put games together here. We're just not clean the last couple ball games, and we've got to get back to that.
Yeah, I think that's the part that's the most frustrating. And look, as we dive in, we're going to look back at this game. We're going to look ahead to the Baltimore Ravens. But I think the thing that is the most discouraging after what was encouraging, the encouraging part was Trevor Lawrence coming from what looked like a significant ankle injury, thought to be a high ankle sprain. He rehabs like a mother. We called him Stretch Armstrong and everything else because he battled his way back. No left tackle, at least not Walker Little at left tackle to start. So you're feeling like, wow, man, this is Trevor fighting to get us back in the win column. So that was encouraging. The discouraging part was this defense seemed to let them down at the worst possible time, and the offense couldn't get it going.
Well, first of all, the defense, actually, there were 3 questionable plays where they just weren't playing the way they need to play. The short yardage play that Njoku was wide open, they jumped into a goal line on a heavy situation offensively, and they thought they were going to run the ball, and they threw it, and Trayvon Walker was responsible for that tight end, and he didn't realize it until Njoku was about 20 yards down the field, and he was engaged with the tackle, and the tackle was holding him, and that was the end of that. And then we really busted a coverage on a zone pressure with one of the linebackers not getting into the hole, and they get the crossing route for a touchdown. But from that point on, Joe, really in the second, for the second, third, and fourth quarters, the defense basically did what it did all year. It bent a little bit, and they made some throws, and you got to give Flacco a little credit here because there was some hurries. There weren't any sacks, but there were some hurries that he still made throws. But they every time the offense made a mistake, they made up for it.
That's
you
true.
know, we throw an interception, we got an interception. You throw another interception, we get a fumble recovery. We fumble. And you know, that's kind of how the game went to the second half. Offensively, I'm really concerned because it was the poor function of the receiver-quarterback combination.
Yeah, that's the biggest takeaway, I think, for every Jaguar fan out there, and we're definitely going to get into this part of it and then kind of take it, you know, a step further as far as where they go from here. But there's no question without Christian Kirk that you lost one of your more reliable down-the-field guys, a move-the-chains guy. He was averaging a nice yards per catch, and we know that he made plays when they needed it most, and he might have been as big a security blanket as Evan Ingram is to Trevor Lawrence. Bottom line, we know that he was gone. And then you have the miscommunication. You have opportunities where this team should be in the end zone with points, and they instead turned into picks, turnovers.
Unfortunately for us right now, Zay Jones is not who Zay Jones was earlier in the season.
Pre-knee.
He's coming back, and hopefully he will continue to respond going forward. You lose arguably your most receiver that was the most reliable.
Yeah, he was.
In Kirk. And then your other receiver, number 0.
Yeah, 0.
Ridley is really struggling with consistency.
See, he wants to be the number 1 receiver, but right now
he's not. When you're 55 catches out of 97 attempts, some of it might be the quarterback, but some of them are drops. Some of them are not getting where he needs to be. A couple of the interceptions were really, in my mind, caused by his not being exactly perfect on where he needed to be.
Right.
So really, the only really reliable guy was the tight end.
Yeah. And by the way, Evan Ingram, after not scoring for the first 10, 11 weeks of the season, he's gotten in the end zone 3 times in the last couple of games. So he's been a bright spot. But go to the one example that you have. Calvin Ridley needs to finish his route and stay in a play. If nothing else, to make the catch. If not that, to keep the defensive back from picking the ball off.
And really that's what happened on the one that they threw the takeoff to him, the deep ball that he took off. They were in. Trevor knew it was a full-out blitz. It was 4 across the board. In my thought process, if they checked off to it, I would have thought they would have run the 2 inside guys in the flat and run posts with the other 2 guys.
Okay.
But they decided they were going vertical with the 2 outside guys and a guy in the flat. Ridley took off. There was pressure on Trevor. He did what he was supposed to do on the coverage, and that's give your receiver a chance to catch it. The corner stayed up over the top of Ridley. He saw that, and he slowed down. And then all of a sudden, he realized the ball was coming to him, and he took off again, and he couldn't get there. So there was no chance for a contested catch.
And the blitz was coming from his side.
Well, that was coming from everywhere.
Okay.
That was a 4 across the board. Everybody was coming.
They were coming. I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to stress
there was a guy clean in the middle. He had to throw the ball. He did what he was supposed to do.
Right.
Give your receiver a chance to make a play downfield against the DB.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the receiver wins that because they're the guys that know how to catch the football and go up and get it.
Yeah, and by the way, he has thrown into some PI plays with Calvin where they forced that official to throw that flag. So it has worked.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm going to go to the obvious, and we might as well hit it because this is the thing that Jag fan is talking about more than anything else, is a team in December, this late into the season, week 14, not on the same page, making mistakes. Trevor talked about it at the end of the game. Coach Peterson did as well. But look, Coach, that's some unacceptable stuff going on out there right now.
Well, you shouldn't have that kind of a situation. I've always been a guy that looks, if you don't practice, you don't play. Because how you practice determines how you play. I don't care what anybody says. Trevor doesn't practice all week, really. I mean, he was out there. He threw some balls and this and that. But the receiver-quarterback combination is a lot of being on the same page and repetition.
Nonverbal
communication. And repetition of what you're going to do with the routes. And I don't think that they're completely on the same page when you don't work on it all week. And so I think it was a little bit of a combination. I thought the ball that he threw, the interception, Trevor, to Zay Jones, when Zay Jones ran the post, they got the coverage they wanted. And in my mind, Zay ran it exactly right. They ran a 2-man route. They ran the right side receiver on a crossing route and Zay on a post. And what happened, they were in a 3 deep. The safety jumped the crossing route, so that put the other corner responsible to get to the middle of the field, and Zay ran right to the middle of the field, and Trevor thought he was going to stay wider So those kind of things shouldn't be happening at this particular time if they're getting repetitions on it.
Okay, I ask dumb questions. He gives us smart answers. Okay, this is how I'm approaching this, because if I'm Doug Peterson, I'm fiery, hot, I'm mad at the mistakes. Even go to Adam Gostis on punt and gets flagged, and you can go down the line with a lot of other things: miscommunication, lack of effort, getting beat up at the line of scrimmage. If I'm Doug Peterson, I'm mad. If I'm Trevor, I'm mad. How do you fix this? Because players need to challenge players inside that locker room, not to the point where they're beefing, but just challenge them to be accountable and better. And I think Doug needs to do the same thing.
Well, I think usually in some of these situations, if it's really bad, you'll have a players-only meeting, first of all. Trevor showed his displeasure in the game.
Yes.
I would have preferred if he had gone to the sidelines and did it rather than showing it on national television.
Right.
But, he with Ridley on the one that Ridley didn't look for the ball and he was a little deep on his route on a blitz, he gave it the eye test. And, so he's displeased, but he's not going to throw his guys under the bus at a press conference. That's just him. I would think he has enough confidence in himself now and in confidence from the team that individually in the building, he would talk to those guys, which I believe he will.
Right.
Doug Peterson's a little bit the same way from the standpoint he's not up, down, he's flat, which is good in my opinion for the head coach. I was kind of the opposite of that at times, which I wish I could have reversed. But
the Italian in him, he might have gotten a little fiery.
Yeah, my hands were working pretty good at times, but I know coaches on that staff, and obviously I have to be a little careful with what I say on air because of relationships, and they listen to everything. Even Trent Baalke's wife called me one time on something. So I have to be a little careful because of relationships. But in talking to some guys, Doug is very good at transparency. When he gets in the meetings, it's not just, okay, guys, we didn't do well this week. Let's go to the next one. He tells it like it is. We need to do this. You need to do this. We need to do this. And I think he does that.
The Campo and Joe podcast is brought to you by Bold City Heating and Air. Fast and reliable AC service.
Yeah, I hope so. I believe so. I believe you're right. I do think he looks at them and says, hey, I'm the coach. You're the professional, meaning this is your job.
Right.
You have got to play like a pro to keep this job. And the unfortunate thing, and we'll probably tear into this a little bit more in the offseason, is that you don't have all the personnel that you'd like to have. That's a Trent Baalke criticism, which I can easily back up. But there is a personnel problem right now. Injuries have hit this team fairly hard the last couple of weeks. Yep. They got to react. They got to respond.
Yep, but that's every team in the league. I mean, there are very few.
The two teams they just lost to had backup quarterbacks.
Yeah, and the team we played last week had the only offensive line that had been together on the whole entire season, every game. This team lost their center early. The team we just played.
Yeah, but that was their fourth quarterback too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it happens to everybody, and you there's no excuses. Nobody cares. You gotta go next man up and just find a way to make it go.
All right. So communication, that definitely is a concern. Let's get to the other frustrating things about the offense, because you said in your mind the offense may be a greater concern than the defense. And I'm going to go back to the very obvious, and something you and I have harped on, is that, yes, injuries are the real deal. Cam Robinson goes down. Walker Little goes down. Ezra Cleveland goes down. I'm not going to minimize and say that this is a 100% healthy bunch.
Right.
Ty Shatley has to come in, didn't necessarily play as well as you would like him. Luke Fortner's been a little bit of a liability entirely. This line of scrimmage sets the tone for everything, and they're not getting it done right now.
Yeah, and the physicalness is not there, and that's unfortunate, especially going into this week. Really the fronts of both the Ravens, defense and offense, are very physical.
Yeah.
They're number 2 in rushing. They're number 2 in rush defense. I mean, they're a very physical football team, and that's a concern. I think we're going to have to get the ball on the perimeter more, whether it's with screens, quick screens, tosses. That's been our best running plays with ETN, is getting them on the perimeter, not with handoffs, but get the ball out there. And those are some things that we're going to have to do. I don't think I think our interior offensive linemen are guys that are not going to knock you off the ball, but they all can run. So get them on the perimeter and make some things happen that way.
Another dumb question. Why don't they do that more often? Why haven't they done it earlier? Because I really think this is a team that doesn't screen up enough plays, and Trevor Etienne's kind of getting beaten up.
Well, in the first half, they did run the wide runs. Yeah. He had 40-something yards in the first half. In the second half, he had no success because they never went back to it. To me, that's what you got to do, and I guess when you get behind, things change a little bit. You say stay with a running game, but you don't want to stay with a running game if you're running dives all day and it's making 1 yard. Yeah. We didn't do very well on first down that whole ball game. And when you don't win first down, you have a hard time going forward.
Yeah, you take a look at these numbers here, and I'll see if I can pull them up. But the thing that is the most frustrating is that, you're constantly looking at a situation where the yards per carry average continues to be reduced, waned, because it's now down. This last game was 2.5 yards per carry. Yeah. And at least Trevor Etienne, for a good part of what he's done so far this season, was running the football at a 3.5 to 4+ yards per carry. And this does come down to, and you can go to PFF numbers and all these other things that you probably could look at, the metrics, the analytics. He's getting hit at the line of scrimmage as much or more than any running back in the league.
Well, we're getting losing yardage. That's where it goes down to the 2.9. I mean, he actually had some runs in the game, like I said, that were okay. It's when you lose 5. They ran the first time they ran it in the third quarter, he lost 5 yards, a handoff wide run play, and the penetration got him. So, they obviously we can't win if we're running at 2.9.
No,
that's not going to happen.
If you take a look at the numbers, okay, Cleveland was flagged more times than Jacksonville was, even though there were some crucial penalties for the Jaguars. 8 flags against Cleveland, 75 yards. You take a look at what Jacksonville was able to hold them to, below 25% on third down. They did a lot of nice things on crucial downs. Jacksonville was 7 of 17. They were 4 of 18. But at the same time, they made big plays. They didn't need third down to convert because they had guys running wide open.
Absolutely. There were 3 plays, three touchdowns where it wasn't a case of somebody beating anybody. It was a case of us making a mistake. And again, you can't make critical mistakes in ball games.
JJ said it when he was running the show, the Jaguars show on 1010XL 92.5 FM. He goes, this was a long football game. This game, the Baltimore Ravens won in overtime before this game was over. 74 offensive plays for both teams. 307 passing yards for the Cleveland Browns, and we know what Joe Flacco did. He's the third straight guy against this Jaguars D going over 300 yards passing. And so those are the things that are frustrating, I think, a lot of Jaguar fans out there. Trevor Lawrence, we mentioned the lack of running, 14 rush attempts for Travis Etienne, yet Trevor had the ball in the air 50 times.
Yeah, you're not going to win. I don't care who you're playing. If you got to throw the ball 50 times in a game and you're only running 14 times, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
That I can tell you that for sure. Defensively, I want to be in one of those games.
Yeah.
I want to know you're going to throw the ball to win. I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have to make plays. And the reason it was a long game was there were so many passes because they weren't running that ball effectively either.
No.
So you put the two of them together, there was a lot of incomplete passes in there. The clock stops. So it was a long game for sure.
All right, so go back to the defensive side of the football. Like you said, by and large, they held up for the most part, where were the weaknesses? We already named Trayvon Walker, his miss on the big play to Njoku. There's a couple of other areas that we need to hit.
Well, there were two. I mean, they made three really poor that defy logic to me. You had that play where they jumped in a goal line, which I had never. You're very concerned about going to a goal line defense upfield because you're just inviting something because you got a linebacker on the tight end, Trayvon Walker, is man-to-man on the tight end with no free safety. So, you don't like that, and the guy was wide open.
Yeah.
That's one. The second one, they ran a zone pressure from one side and with only three underneath. And one of the linebackers, and I'm not going to throw either one of them on a bus because I don't know which one messed up, whether it was Oluokun or Lloyd, but was supposed to be in the hole, we call it, which is, within 10 yards in the middle of the field. Neither one of them went there, so the guy was wide open. He just ran it in from 30 yards. The third one was the one to Bell, which really put a nail in the coffin in my mind because we were starting to move the ball a little bit offensively, and defensively we were playing okay.
Cut it down to one score.
They went to a bunch formation. We went man to man. They had run the same play on 3rd and 3 with an incompletion against zone. We're now in man to man, and they basically with the two inside guys ran a double in against man to man. That's the toughest one to handle. And really, the guy against man, Bell, should have kept running. So Darius Willis, who had him, thought he was going to keep crossing. So he ran as hard as he could inside to get him, and he stopped. And Williams fell down.
Yeah. And so Darius Williams had 2 solo tackles and an interception. And so he made a couple of those bigger plays that you were talking about, at least giving the ball back to the offense. But those are the killers. They really are. Devin Lloyd, like you said, we don't know whether it was Foye Oluokun, Devin Lloyd on the one big play, but Lloyd had 11 total tackles, a fumble recovery, and has done some good things. But he's doing some nice things against the run. Like you said, they didn't run the ball particularly well, but he's getting, it's either that big bust play or whatever that leads to points. For
and that could have been him.
Yeah.
I don't know. But, all I know is if you don't get some sacks and you don't get really clean pressure on the quarterbacks, every quarterback in this league can throw the ball for 300 yards. It's just you got to make sure that you do those things in order to get it done.
And look, old man Flacco, his Super Bowl was more than a decade ago, but he can't move a lot. But boy, he can fire the football. He can
still spin it. Yeah.
And so that's the thing that's the most frustrating. Antonio Johnson was the guy who came in, and he did get to Flacco, popped the ball out of his hands, got the sack and the forced fumble. I'm going to make this, a semi-joke here about Trent Baalke and his personnel decisions, because he didn't go get Chase Young, would have had to give up a considerable amount. We know that the 49ers went and got him. We know how much better they are adding him to their roster. This team does not have enough guys getting to the quarterback. Chase Young would have been nice. You can add up a couple of other guys that they should have looked at. But the other part of it, Coach, if you just go to the 5th round of the NFL draft, give Trent Baalke an A++.
Right.
He has Parker Washington, who in back-to-back week has had scores. Now you add in Antonio Johnson. Right. You add in, there are 3 5th-round picks for this franchise that are actually doing work for the Jaguars. Now, Sir Abdullah was a guy that was in the 5th round that was trying to get something going earlier this year. He's not been completely healthy, but the bottom line is the 5th round has been good too.
Yeah, let's get a few more of those because those are the tough ones to pick. But we've got to make sure that the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd rounders are pretty good too, and which obviously the 1st rounder is. I mean, number 77 is going to be a right tackle here for a long time in my mind.
But the other part of it is that Tank Bigsby is basically invisible. Right. All right. He is a 3rd-round draft pick. Brenton Strange is a 2nd-round draft pick that right now is hurt, and you can't do anything about that.
Right. Exactly.
But there are other rookies, either tight ends, receivers, whomever, running backs. There's a lot of them making impact plays for their football teams.
And hopefully there's some guys that are down the line, Hodges and some of the guys that have been hurt that are going to play as well before it's all over. I don't know that you can count this draft class until next year. After next year, you could kind of see where everybody is.
All right, so let's do a couple of quick things on the Baltimore Ravens. Just at least some of your initial thoughts, because we got to lay it down with a big Sunday night football game. This team's not won under the lights since before 2011.
Well, you got to stop the quarterback. The quarterback is 67% throwing, and he's 5.2 rushing. So, the one thing that Monken has done, the offensive coordinator, is he's got him not just running to run, he's got him running to throw, which I think is a plus. And you got to stop that guy. He's a dual threat. There's no question about it. And this is going to be a tough game because their front, like I said, their fronts on both sides are very physical. They're ranked very high in both scoring and scoring on defense, not giving up a lot of points.
Right.
We're going to have to play a really clean, solid game in this game. And I do believe we have enough personnel. If we play clean and solid, it will be a football game. It's not going to be a blowout, in my opinion.
All right, so let's just leave on somewhat of a high note. And you mentioned earlier, and I'll let you mention it again after I say, you needed to win one of these two games. You could have done a hell of a lot of good. I didn't necessarily expect that Jacksonville would drop two games to the teams that we've talked about, but give the Bengals credit. When Jamar Chase needed to make plays, he did. When Joe Flacco needed to make plays, or Njoku, however you want to describe it, they did. If this team could pick off Baltimore right now, all you have to do is look back at this week's worth of games. The Tennessee Titans beat a 9-3 Miami Dolphins team on the road when Miami thought they were ready to assert themselves and challenge the Ravens for the number one overall pick.
Right.
The Chiefs' back-to-back losses, we can go down the line.
The two from our division, both lost.
Both the Texans and the Colts lost. Jacksonville is only a game up on them. You certainly have tiebreakers, but you can take a look. The Cleveland Browns are now 8-5, just like the Jacksonville Jaguars. So if they could get this game against a 10-3 Baltimore team and pull them back to within a game of that top seed.
Yeah. Listen, the AFC is crazy with the playoff picture because, when you got 11 teams with winning records out of 16 or whatever it is, it either means one or two things. Either you got an AFC of parity, or you got an AFC of mediocrity, one or the other. But what that means is either way, every game is critical, starting with this one for the Jaguars, because, they're in decent shape. They still control their own destiny as far as winning the division.
Right.
But, in this league, if you're not ready, they could go 0-4 and go home, or they could go 4-0. And get the number one spot.
Yeah.
That's the way this league works, especially in the AFC. So, they're going to have to bow up and get ready for this next ball game.
Yeah, and just know, if nothing else, the Baltimore Ravens have won more than their fair share, so they may be due for an L on the road. So we'll enjoy it. We'll look forward to it, and then we'll be back next Tuesday. Campo and Joe, appreciate everybody for tuning in, and we will talk to you next week.
This presentation of the Campo and Joe podcast is brought to you by Bold City Heating and Air, fast and reliable AC service.